everybody, Richie here from RecklessPixel and LensWizard.com. And yeah, if you've seen that thumbnail and that's why you clicked on this video, well, let me just say I never thought I was going to be that guy. I never thought I would be the guy making this video. So we're talking about the Canon 70-200 lens, and just let me read it off of here because I don't know exactly what it is, but it doesn't matter whether you have the Nikon or the Sony counterpart to this, or you have any other lens, cheap or expensive. But this is the Canon zoom lens EF 70-200mm f2.8 L series. It has image stabilization. It's the Mark II version of this lens, and USM, which is ultrasonic motor. So again, that's what happened to this lens, but it could happen to any lens. Now, I don't call this lens all what I just read there. I call this lens my pry it from my cold dead hand 70-200. Okay, before I tell you exactly what happened to this and the final outcome of what happened, let me just state that when I first got into photography many years ago, I learned very early on that put your money into going up in glass rather than up in camera bodies. Okay, if you can go up in glass, glass is where it's at, and you know, glass is going to change, the versions of these change a lot less and a lot slower than the versions of camera bodies. Okay, so go up in glass if you can, and that's what I started to do. I saved my money. At the time I bought this, it's been several years back now, but at the time I bought this, it was $2,399 at B&H. Okay, now the other thing that I learned at the very beginning buying lenses was everybody said, you know, I would read on blogs at the time, you got to put a UV filter on it. It's going to protect your lens. And I said, but I'm not going to be that guy. You know, I'm very cautious with my stuff. Now, I also thought that because the lens hood is so big on this particular lens, that there's no way, and this lens hood is tough. I mean, that is a tough lens hood. So I said, there's no way that anything's going to ever hit this thing. And so I just never thought I was going to be that guy. But I still put the filter on there. But I'd always look at the filter and all the other filters that I have, and I'd say, do I really need that filter? So like the day I buy a new lens, and I do this, I did it back then, I do it to this day. When I buy a new lens, I always bought a UV filter at the same time. Now this is a Canon UV filter, and I think I paid like 80 to 100 bucks for this thing at the time. So I put the UV filter on. The only time I take the UV filter off is when I'm putting a polarizer or an ND filter, or if I'm in the studio. If I'm in the studio, I take the advice of infamous photographer and Photoshop artist Woody Walters, and he says, get that, you know, you don't want to have anything on the front of your lens when you're in the studio. You want to get as crisp and clear images as you can. So I take it off. In the studio, I put it back on. So what happened on the infamous night that this thing took its crash? Well, let me state that it didn't happen while I was photographing anything. That's the craziest part. I'm a very rough and tumble guy, and I'm hard on equipment. I never bought camera equipment. Well, put it this way, I'm not that kind of guy that comes home and dusts it all off at the end of the day and puts it back on the shelf and, you know, just sits there and looks at it. And, you know, you buy a $2,400 lens and it's got, over the course of a year, it's got like 10 shots on it. That's not me. You know, I'm out there shooting with this stuff all the time. And I'm the kind of guy that sets the camera with this lens on it in the sand on a beach in Thailand, and you hear people gasp when you do it. But that's me. I'm a rough and tumble guy. So anyway, the Canon Tech, I have Canon Pro Service subscription, and I live just 20 minutes from the service center, so I take my stuff in person. And the tech told me when I took this lens there for this particular incident, he said, you know, these lenses are built tough. He says Canon knew when they built this lens that this is going out with photojournalists into war zones. So this is, you know, it's weather sealed. I mean, this is a tough lens. Anyway, with that said, I had to photograph the Thai princess in New York City. The royal Thai princess, one of them, was coming to New York City. She's very ill in health, and she was having a fundraiser. They didn't know if she'd ever come back because she was very ill. So there were only 3 photographers allowed to photograph her. I was one of the 3, and I was the only American. I had to downsize all of my gear that I would normally carry in a sling bag to a holster bag so that I could go into the St. Regis Hotel and travel very light and quick, you know. So anyway, with that said, after that job, I never put the stuff back in my big bag. I kept it in the holster bag, and I was off doing, I have another business, I have a catering business that we do on-site cooking and everything like that, and I will take my camera with me to photograph stuff for my website, because I also run that website as well, and it's a great tax write-off, so to use your camera for that. So anyway, I come back from a catering job very, very late at night. I had put the holster bag on top of some food transport boxes, and when we returned from the job, it was dark, it was late, we just wanted to unload, go home, and go to bed. And my wife didn't know the camera bag was where it was. She opened up a door, and the camera was laying kind of like this, and when she opened it, it fell, and it took a total 360, and it went straight down, and it went straight down, it landed right on the front. But it was inside of a low pro holster bag. Now, nothing against low pro, but it fell at about a distance of about 4.5 feet. And I was still in the driver's seat, and I heard it outside my window. I heard the bag hit the ground on the concrete, and I knew instantly there was some kind of damage. I didn't hear glass break, but I heard just a god-awful noise that you didn't want to hear. And I knew right away that something had happened. I was thinking the LCD on the back of the camera was, you know, trashed. And anyway, what had happened, this fell straight down. And if you can imagine, the filter ring literally sliced the outer part of the lens cap off. It literally came off in like a ring. And the rest of the lens cap was pushed inside of the filter ring. And the glass inside of the filter ring was just toast. I mean, it was smashed. So I tried to get the lens cap off with vice grips. That wasn't happening. And again, this has happened 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. You just want to go to bed. So eventually I did unthread this very carefully, very, very slowly. I actually turned it up this way so that any pieces, and this is good information to know if it ever happens to you, hopefully it never will, but I turned it up this way so that any broken glass would fall down. And when I got it off, of course this was, you know, done. You can see in the pictures, this was covered with pieces of broken glass and powdered crushed glass. So I did not, and I would suggest if it ever happens to you, do not try to clean that off of there. Do not try to clean that off of there at all, at least not right away. So it's dark where I'm at. It's pretty dark. We only have some pole lighting, and I got my flashlight, and I'm looking, and the element looks like it's okay. It looked like it was okay, but was it okay? I didn't know. And mind you now, my wife is the one that did this, and yes, she's still alive to this day. Actually, I didn't blame her at all, it is what it is. Accidents happen. So anyway, what I did was I took the rocket blower and I kind of blew, but there was still a lot of glass stuck to the element. And I just didn't, I said, you know what? I just covered the thing with a cloth. I put it inside of a plastic bag, and the next day I headed down to Pro Services, and I walked in, and they were, kind of surprised. They're like, wow, what happened? So anyway, nothing was wrong with the front element. There was actually other stuff wrong, like it had knocked some of these screws loose in this bezel, or whatever you want to call this here. And there was also some internal screws that were loose. So I had pro services, you know, it cost me, I think with my discount and everything, I think it cost me a little over $100. They went through the whole lens, and actually I think it works better now. It seems like the focusing is like just super tack on more than it ever was, and it always was good. Anyway, so that's what happened to the lens. That was the outcome. Like I said, I never thought I would be that guy. But it didn't happen while I was out shooting. It happened in transport. Whoever thought that I would have never guessed in a million years that if I was going to be that guy, that it would have went down that way. So it just goes to show, you never know. I mean, I've traveled with this thing all the way to Southeast Asia, walking up and down mountains, on beaches. I've carried it with me while walking in the Gulf of Thailand, around islands, neck deep in water, holding the camera up. I've never, in all these situations that I've been in, I've never had any problem, and then just something like that happens. So in the end, I can say that it is worth it to spend $100 on a filter, or more if you want to. It definitely was worth it, because it definitely saved it. I don't know, a little bit higher, and I don't know if it would have, but again, going back to what the Canon tech says, he says, you know, these things are built a lot tougher than you think. I mean, they can break. You can damage them. There's no doubt about it. It is it's an electronic piece of equipment. You can damage it, but it takes quite a bit to do it. So, okay, everybody, that's the story. That's what happened. I know I kind of drug it out maybe a little too long. I just hope it wasn't too boring. Hey, you know what? Hit like if you're so inclined to do that. Hit like, hit subscribe, and come back. You know, check out my Lens Wizard Lightroom tutorial for the new photographers. If you're new to Lightroom, I always suggest, you know, get into Lightroom. It's an awesome raw editor, and there's so much more that you can do with Lightroom besides just editing. I mean, you can make slideshows, you can print books, organize your photos, just for organizational purposes. Lightroom is amazing. So until next time, hit like, hit subscribe, and come back and check us out in the next video. I love my lens. It's like a baby.